Welcome to Brand Builders TV. Deep dive topics, tools and resources brought to you by global thought leaders from within the Brand Builders Club. This show gives you access to the strategies that you can use to move forward with ease and flow in every area of your life and business. On today's show, Licia is going to take us through part 2 of her 6-part leadership series. During this show, Licia is going to go deeper into the second strategy, which is all about reaching out for support, allowing non-judgment, vulnerability, and the strength it takes to do it all for ourselves and others. Learn it, model it, and get shit done. Let's go.
So, greetings and blessings to all of you. Happy to be here today on BBTV. My name is Licia Berry, and I'm known as the Guide to the Frontier Inside. And I'm having the delightful pleasure of taking you through a series that I'm calling I'm Not a Victim, I Am Victorious. And it's to steer you to an orientation towards success and fulfillment that will transform any challenge that you have faced, are currently facing, or will ever face into rocket fuel for your success. This is an orientation of pain being able to be turned into our prize. So accepting, claiming, and even embracing our pain changes it from needless suffering to blessings and lessons, or blessings, as we like to say. So welcome. Last time I promised you, when we were here last time, I created an introduction to this concept, and I asked you some key questions. And I promised you that I was going to be sharing 5 strategies with you to turn your challenges into your treasures. And today I will share strategy number 1. This is so important. All 5 of these strategies are extremely important, but you got to start somewhere, right? And so in our intro episode last time, we talked about really just acknowledging that you might be in a hard space, or that maybe you had some pain in your life and or are currently experiencing some pain. And certainly 2020 has brought a lot of our pain forward, brought a lot of our unresolved pains forward, and even in creating some fresh new pain, grief, anger, fear, loss, worry, uncertainty. And there's plenty of that, all over the world. And it's really, it's unfortunate. We would like for that not to be the case, but it is the case. And so it's like, okay, it is what it is. Here we are. This is the situation. So now what do we do about it? And that's what this series, I'm Not a Victim, I Am Victorious, is about, is recognizing that when you do have pain, that it actually can be a gold mine for your purpose, for your business, for your leadership, and to turn that pain, compost that pain, as I talked about last time, into something that's actually useful and productive in your life. So today, the strategy number 1 is to reach out. Reach out. Like, how hard is that, right? Reach out. What do you think I mean by that? Reach out beyond yourself for support. Strategy number 1 is reach out beyond yourself for support. Think about that just for a minute and notice what happens in your body when I say that to you. Are you aware that when I have you imagine reaching out for support, that do you notice anything in your gut, in your belly? Do you notice anything in your heart? Do you notice anything in your mind? Is there an instant, oh, can't do that? That's because there's a cultural bias against asking for help. There's a cultural bias against being vulnerable. And we're going to explore that a little bit. So let me get you in a framework here so that you are not feeling uncertain about asking for help, that you can actually feel great about it. Let's start here. How do you reach out for support in your day? Think about your day, like waking up in the morning, getting out of bed. Some people wake up in the morning and they reach for a cup of coffee for support. And there are some folks who are quite clear that they cannot move into a productive day unless they have their coffee or tea. In the case of my UK friends, I'm a tea fan myself. I don't have to. I have a cup of tea in the morning, but it is an automatic go to the teapot, turn on the water, get my cup out, put my tea in there. I do it automatically without hesitation because it's like this is what I do in the morning. This is my little thing that I do to kind of help me get going in the day. And some people do that several times a day. So no big deal, right? We're reaching out for a little caffeine. We're reaching out for a little ritual in the morning to get us moving into our day and kind of get those engines going. And there are folks that are very clear that they can't start a productive day without a coffee or a tea. I know that's kind of a silly example, but I have another one. What about if you're in a funk on any given day? If you're feeling a little blue, or you're feeling a little trapped, or you're feeling a little alone in your mind, and you reach out to a friend and just need to be listened to. Do you do that automatically and without hesitation, like you do reaching out for that cup of tea or coffee in the morning? In both cases, there is a motion to reach beyond oneself for something that will make us feel better, right? That coffee or tea is definitely going to make me feel better, when I wake up in the morning. That reaching out to a friend who has a sympathetic ear, who's just going to listen and not judge me, is definitely going to make me feel better. But is one of these easier to do than the other? Do you feel permission to grab that morning cup of whatever without hesitation? And do you feel permission to reach out to that friend, to call them up and say, hey, I need you to just listen to me for 20 minutes without hesitation? So answer that question honestly. In which of those examples do you feel like you would be able to move it, without hesitation, almost automatically? Let's see who's here today. Maybe I actually have some folks. Can you all say hello? I see that I've got a few folks here. Say hi and let me know. Are you a cup of joe kind of person, a cup of tea kind of person? Do you get up in the morning and you immediately reach for something to kind of get you supported in your day? How do you feel about calling a friend if you need help? Let me know how you feel about that. I'll continue here. Reaching out to ask for help may not be easy and automatic or without hesitation for you. And if that's the case, you are far from alone. There is a cultural bias to do things on our own. There's a message in that we need to be tough, or we need to be stoic, or we need to be self-sufficient, that we are even weak or deficient if we need or want to receive support. Have you heard that message from anyone? Did you ever hear a message somewhere that you needed to do it all by yourself, and that if you did reach out for help, that maybe you were shamed for that, or somehow received a message that was weak to show vulnerability that way, to ask for help? Think about that. Where could you have received that message? Sometimes it's a teacher in a classroom. I remember my knees knocking up at the chalkboard trying to do my math problems on the chalkboard, and the pressure to get it right, the pressure to know the answer all by myself and to demonstrate to everyone in the classroom, that I could do it, and that when I couldn't, I felt such a shame about that, so much shame. And sometimes people even made fun, if I couldn't do it. How about a parent that maybe unwittingly messaged that they didn't have time for you if you were having a challenge as a kid, some difficulty that you were going through? It's not those of us who have children, we know that our demands on our time are endless. And we can't always be there, in a way that we would like to be for our kids. And sometimes the message, even if it's completely unintentional, that we give our children is that they have nowhere to go, that they need to figure it out, that you don't have time for them. Could you have gotten a message that way? How about this? How about a workplace that doesn't encourage open discussion to solve conflict? Maybe you have worked in a situation where something wasn't going right and you tried to get help to solve the problem and were told to be quiet about it, or to stop making waves. These are all messages to stay closed and to prevent us, from reaching out. I'm not saying that they're intentionally necessarily messages to stop us from reaching out, but that's the message that we receive. We get this idea that we have got to do it all on our own. And over time, as an adult, and as you grow your neural pathways in your brain, you create a pattern that pretty much creates a cage in your mind that will prevent you from reaching out beyond yourself to ask for help. Now, you may recognize yourself in this story. Let me check and see if anyone has said anything yet. Oh, yes. Bridget, nope to both. Okay, good for you, girl. Tracy, peppermint tea girl. All right, Tracy Ann, excuse me. I have a trusted network and close group of 3 people, including my husband. That is so wonderful and needed. Stay with me though, because I have a twist. It's important to think about ourselves as being animals, being organic, being soft, being vulnerable. And that in our vulnerability, our strength is not only in that we can acknowledge our own need for support, but also that we are part of a larger whole, that we're part of a community of people who can love us and hold us when we're having a hard time, and that we can also do it for them. There's this cultural bias out there that being vulnerable or showing too much vulnerability is bad, bad, bad. And when we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable, there's a question that comes to my mind. Are we able to actually allow others to be vulnerable? If we judge ourselves in any way for being vulnerable or needing to reach out for help, can we do that for others? Can we actually be non-judgmental for others? I did a little research and I found something. I don't know if you guys are Brene Brown fans. Anybody a Brene Brown fan? I just love her. I think she's so real and so just says it like it is. Are you guys Brene Brown fans? Let's see. Tracy Ann, as a child, I didn't have that trusted network. Yeah, Tracy, that says a lot about you. Excuse me, Tracy Ann. That says a lot about your mental and emotional resilience, that you actually chose to create a network as an adult, even though you didn't have that as a kid. And in fact, maybe it's what happened as a kid that actually drove you to seek that as an adult, because you knew how bad that felt not to have a good network. That's so awesome. So do you guys know Brene Brown? Are y'all familiar with Brene Brown? She's awesome. She's a professor and a researcher who has spent decades, I think, studying vulnerability. And she says, there's a quote that I really like of hers. She said in one of her talks that you may be judging people without even realizing it. And she says, this is how she says it. She says, let me just ruin this for you. She said, when you cannot ask for help without self-judgment, you are never really offering help without judgment. Let me say that again, because it's like, I get goosebumps every time I read this. She said, when you cannot ask for help without self-judgment, you are never really offering help without judgment. Now, is that a mind blower? You know, I think of myself as being a non-judgmental person. And I think a lot of people do. There are even folks that really pride themselves on being non-judgmental about our friends and our colleagues, our family. And a good friend that can hold a non-judgmental frame of mind for themselves is very likely to be very good at listening, acknowledging, and holding space for somebody else. So, like you, Tracy, and like if you have this wonderful network, they clearly must be non-judgmental of you. Otherwise, why would you go back to them and, you know, and be vulnerable with them and allow them the gift and opportunity to support you? But if we cannot reach out through our own weakness, you know, or in other words, vulnerability, it's because we're judging ourselves. We are judging ourselves. And again, it's because we learned it from the culture. You know, it's not necessarily something that is our fault that we initially got that message, but we certainly can change it now as adults and as people who seek to be leaders in the world. Then we really have to understand the complex spectrum of human emotion and the need for people to be vulnerable in order for them to move forward, for us to be vulnerable so that we can move forward. And by reaching out, I just saw some very large bird fly by. For us to be vulnerable means that we are understanding that that is the way out. That is the way through. They say there's no way out but through. And it really is true. For us to actually get through whatever challenge we may be facing, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable is the first step to actually getting somewhere, to taking ourselves out of that particular frame of mind, that stuck place, and beginning to move forward. And these other strategies I'll be sharing with you in these next few series, few episodes of this series, will be to take you step by step through that. But the willingness to be vulnerable is key. The willingness to reach out, to acknowledge, okay, I'm in this spot, I'm in a hard space. Maybe I've been here for a while. I tried, you know, some stuff to get out by myself, maybe even, and I just, you know, I'm not getting anywhere. We have to let ourselves reach out and ask for help. We got to do it. Reach out for support, reach out for guidance, reach out for direction, reach out for an ear, just someone to hold the space and then listen and acknowledge where we are. So it reminds me how judging ourselves keeps us stuck. In my practice, which I've been a professional for 30 years, I started in the education industry and working with children in the public school system, then working with children with brain disorders and young adults with brain disorders for a division of developmental disabilities for the state of Arizona. And then later in the nonprofit world, until I got the call that it was time for me to go into private practice and actually support business leaders and people who are interested in really showing up in their lives and in the world. And it's been my great joy to do that for the last 20 years. So it's been wonderful. I have learned something, that self-judgment is the fastest way to be stuck. Self-judgment, let me say that again. Self-judgment is the fastest way to be stuck. Like we all have feelings. We're emotional creatures after all, you know, human beings. As much as we may try to deny that we have emotion, we really do have them. And if we allow the emotion to move, it's like a wave, it's like water. It moves, and then eventually it will dissipate, it will express, it will be complete, it will be done. But if we judge ourselves for feeling how we feel, immediately what that does, it arrests the process of that expression of that emotion. It arrests the process of our being able to actually let that emotion move through us and be done with it. It keeps us stuck. Self-judgment I think is probably one of the worst bad habits that I have seen over my years in private practice. And so I advocate all the time, stop judging yourself. Just feel it, be with it. Maybe even get a little into it. I'm not suggesting that we wallow in our challenges, but that by trying not to even let ourselves feel those challenges or feel our vulnerability as a result of those challenges, we're actually keeping ourselves separate and apart from the very path that will walk us through it and get us to the other side where we can actually make good of that challenge. It reminds me of a story. I have a radio show that I haven't been very active on it recently. I think this is the early podcast. It was actually on Blog Talk Radio years ago. And I had a listener call in who was crying and crying and crying. She was just sobbing. And I was like, oh, honey, what's happening? What's going on? And she said, oh, I'm having such a hard time. My son, she says, my son committed suicide. Immediately, like a bomb dropped, right? Like, I'm like, oh my God. And she said, she just keeps on going. She says, my son committed suicide, but I've been trying to follow the law of attraction. I've been trying to stay positive. I've been trying to think positively about this, but I just can't seem to pull myself out of this hole. And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, sweetheart, and I said this to her on the radio. I said, sweetheart, you need to allow yourself to grieve. You need to stop holding yourself apart from what is real and natural in your body and let yourself feel, let yourself grieve. Oh my God, she just cried and cried and cried and cried. And she's like, thank you. She wrote me later and said that the permission that I, a stranger on the radio, gave her to just let herself feel that vulnerability inside of herself for this devastating event in her life moved her forward, that it changed her life, that she was able to move forward and actually has now, all these years later, has made a very good speaking business about recovery from a child's death. And it reminds me of the power of non-judgment, number one, because I wasn't judging her for feeling the grief for this horrible thing happening. But what was key was that she was judging herself. She judged herself for feeling the grief. And that is really a shame. And so when we do that, we can start making these things up in our head where we can follow these, what may seem like a very good idea and maybe actually appropriate in some situations, but she was trying to law of attraction herself out of grieving for her dead son. Can you imagine? So it's like it was because she wasn't letting herself go there. She wasn't reaching out for help until she reached out on the radio. She happened to be listening and she called in. That was her reaching out for help, and that was what turned her around. It's the same like if you have had some kind of trauma in your life and seeking therapy, reaching out and seeking therapy. I shared in the last episode, I shared some of the challenges I have lived through, and therapy saved my life. I spent a good 2 solid years in therapy when I first learned about some of the things that I was processing, some of those abuses of childhood, some of those traumas that I'd encountered. And it saved my life. It helped me to lift myself up out of this dark cage in my mind and to actually start to understand that there was a path forward, but it started with reaching out for help. It started with reaching out for help. And this can be in any kind of situation, whether it's a friend or whether it's your beloved, partner, or whether it's a therapist or whether it's a coach or whether it's a mentor, facilitator, healer like myself. Reach out to someone, but you want it to be someone that you feel like you can trust. Because of course, if we reach out to someone that we that might shame us or make us feel bad, for reaching out, then we may not do it again. So it's important to reach out to someone you trust, but do reach out. Remember that vulnerability makes us stronger, not weaker. and to admit that we can't do it alone actually leads us on the path out of the challenge and makes us a better human being for ourselves and each other. So let's do a quick experiential exercise to remove any self-judgment, to look for any self-judgment that we may have in our body. So let me first see if there's anybody who has a question. Oh, I love this so much. Thank you all. I forgive me for not looking. Wow, look at all these beautiful comments. I had to have a stiff upper lip as a child and deal with it. Yes, absolutely. I know that one. Brene Brown is the author that I'm talking about. She's wonderful. Yes, absolutely. I chose that route specifically, and I encourage people and I work with to have a network, but ability to also be self-sufficient. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that you judge yourself. Oh, this message, right, Chris? This is a message we need for right now, 100%. Oh, Bridget, you love Brene Brown. You want to be able to hold space for others. Absolutely. I agree. Well, y'all join me for a minute and let's go into this internal space, into the inner landscape. The guide to the frontier inside here. I love the frontier inside. It's my favorite place to go, and that's where all the answers are, including the answer: go get help, reach out for help, right? So take a moment and go inside for just a minute. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. This maybe will take 2 minutes. And breathe in through the top of your head and allow that breath to move down through your body. And see if there's any place in you that feels like, I need help. Like if there's a place in your body that seems to sort of say, hey, over here, sort of stands out as you're breathing. See if there's any kind of a place in you that you notice a little tension or a little tightness. And as you're breathing, let your body be your guide. Let your body be a messenger. Let the pain or discomfort or tension in your body be a messenger. Go to that place. Go right to it. Don't run around it. Don't try to, steamroll over it. Go right to it. Go straight to it like you're running to the target of a dartboard. Just go right there. Go to that tension. Go to that pain. Ooh, okay, I found mine in my right hip. Okay, now be in the presence of it. Breathe and be in the presence of it. No judgment, complete acceptance. Just be in the presence of it, whether it's a heartache, whether it's a pain in your body, whether it's an emotional, unresolved feeling, just be in the presence of it. And now, as you're in the presence of it, allow it. Allow it to be there. Allow it to take up that space. Allow that it has a message for you. Allow it to be there instead of trying to deny its existence. It's there because there's a message. It's there because there's a reason. So be in the presence of it and allow it to exist. And see if you don't notice something immediately happen. A melting, a softening, a warming in that place. Send compassion and love from your heart to that place. Beam compassion, complete acceptance to that place, and see if you don't notice a change. I noticed one right away. As a result of beaming acceptance and compassion and non-judgment to that which ails us, to those places that are vulnerable in us and are asking for help, those things often dissolve. And if they don't dissolve immediately, then we can ask them questions, have a conversation with them, be in the presence of them until they do let go. Give us the message and let go. This is how we can show up for others too. We be in the presence of it. We exude love and compassion. We just allow it to be. We allow it to be. This is the message that I want to give to you today more than anything else, is that giving ourselves permission to be vulnerable, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and reaching out for help is the key to healing so many of the world's ills right now. So I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that you will join me next week at the same time, same place, for strategy number 2. And there's a link that I have here for very helpful mind support if you're interested in reaching out for support, something called the 4 obstacles, where I take you through transforming the obstacles in our mind that prevent us from being vulnerable and prevent us from reaching out for support and turning that pain that we may have into a prize. I'm Licia Berry, the guide to the frontier inside. I wish you so much love and wellness and well-being in your life, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Please reach out and message me if you have any questions, or here on the thread, and just tag me so I can find you. Lots of love to all of you. Have a beautiful week.
I hope that you've enjoyed the show today as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. If you've got anything out of this episode, please do tell someone else how they can subscribe to the Brand Builders TV channel at youtube.com/brandbuilderstv. Why not join us at our next Brand Builders Thinkubator, a global mastermind that we run every week to take away the loneliness of being in business on your own. For more information and to book your place, visit light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. That's light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. Until next time, be the ripple that you wish to see in the world, and we'll see you soon.